be back with another episode of the Real Radar Radio Show. Possibly episode 2 of this whole quarantine business, but nonetheless, it's coming along. So last episode, I dived into the whole, coronavirus rant, and I kind of just kept talking about it. I kept talking about how a lot of things weren't shaping up to be any which way positive or any way good. I mean, it was, I guess we were just in the midst of something happening, and it all just, happening all at once. So, a lot of things have transpired from the last time I did the episode regarding coronavirus to this one. And it's just a lot of different aspects and happenings that have just kind of, made sense. And it kind of, also feels like a sense of normalcy. I mean, granted, the normalcy here is, everybody's kind of back to doing their old thing. I can't really exaggerate how insane I think this idea is, but bars are still closed, theaters are still closed, restaurants still have a capacity limit, whatever. But for what it's worth, I have to say, I don't really sense like a new normal happening. I still feel like there's a lot of things that are gonna transpire within the next few weeks or so. These stay-at-home orders opening up the state, having everything happen all at once, where it's made readily available, for everybody to just kind of, be able to go out and about and be around those people. It's a big risk. It's a big thing to take away from a lot of the events going on and a lot of things happening. I mean, obviously it's a huge difference when you see different people just trying to, take in different things happening all at once, but at the same time, it's no good for everybody else, because there's other people, who would wish that things would be different, would stay different, would, people would lighten up on the stay-at-home orders, and be able to, ignore the fact that there's quite a few rules and regulations that people would wish that their local governments or the state or even the president would lax on. I understand there's protests. I understand there's a lot of mixed feelings about the whole lockdown order, and people got to stay home and work from home, or people got to go home and go and make money, but they have to go to work, but their employer's telling them to stay home, stay put. And it's different. It's completely different. It's really insane. And I agree to a certain point, where you got to make money, you got to provide for your family. I have to say that with everything that's been given, I would really hope that some people will come to their senses and know that in order for things to happen and go back to normal, certain rules and guidelines have to be followed, and people have to take that into consideration when it comes to getting back to a normal. So, things have just been a little bit different in regards to the virus. People just kind of just casually going back to how things were, and hopefully still exercising the whole wear your masks and maintain your distance. It's been a little wild. I would go to the stores, you have to get groceries, you run into people, you're too close. they don't really enforce those rules at a grocery store, other than waiting in line and making sure you're 6 feet away from the next customer. But I mean, when you're in the aisles, it's it's kind of hard to maneuver being 6 feet away when you gotta get things from one shelf while the other person's there. And I tell you, man, the supermarkets here are can be a little strenuous because waiting in line, kind of their store hours and everything have kind of put a damper and a few people's plans. I myself have not really been able to experience that firsthand. I did wait in line at the grocery store here a couple times, not a couple days, a couple hours, a couple times to get a few supplies and stuff. But other than that, I mean, nothing crazy. Other than people going in and buying things that the store sets limits on, and you see people going in with one or two family members or whatever. They pay separately just so they can buy stuff in bulk. It's crazy. But rather than talk about the virus, rather than discuss more shit that you guys need on your plate to talk about and discuss, because I think we're all kind of wasted with coronavirus news and numbers and positives and negatives and correlations and deaths and all that. I think we could just take a break from all that, right? I mean, just kind of relax a little bit, take a step back, and just say, hey, you know what? Fuck it. You know what? Let's get to what the show's about. So I gotta say, man. I mean, I for one am really astounded with the whole video on demand, these new releases that should be in the theaters or not, but are in the on demand. Kind of sucks because I mean, I'm astounded in a way where I'm kind of pleased. I had an idea of bringing movies that are in the cinema to on demand a few years ago, back when I was in college, and I had this idea where it was called CinemaStream, and CinemaStream would be movies that were in the theaters at the same time being released on demand on an app, legally, of course. Obviously, not charging $20 a fucking rental. I was thinking more I don't know, maybe $12, $15 a movie. I mean, granted, it's still kind of pricey, but at the same time, I mean, you don't want to make it to the point where people can't afford to watch the movie. I mean, obviously people still find a way to watch movies, whether they're in theaters, whether they go to the theaters or not. There's always going to be someone who video pirates the movie straight from a camcorder, gets their hands on some sticky download online with some weird ass subtitles in Chinese or some foreign language. Not to knock anything away from any cultures here, but I mean, there's always got to be that one old reliable guy who finds his hands on a pirated movie version of the movie that you're trying to watch, and then you watch it and you just feel horrible because you kind of ruined it for yourself rather than experience the whole theater setting and sitting in the theater like a normal person. Kind of feel a little guilty. I mean, trust me, I've seen pirated movies. I've purchased a couple from the flea market. I mean, who hasn't? I mean, growing up, we grew up with LimeWire. I mean, if you didn't grow up with LimeWire or BearShare or Napster or shit like that, I mean, where were you? I mean, were you really living? But yeah, man. I mean, I believe that the whole video on demand thing is a neat concept. I think it's a smart idea. I mean, granted, I see that the theaters are upset and protesting because these movies on demand are taking away from the in-theater experience that you should be experiencing, because these movies were made to be enjoyed in the theaters. But as crazy as it sounds, it's kind of hard to imagine that these movies are suffering or finding a way to find it difficult to make box office success in the theaters. I mean, if you have a movie that's releasing video on demand, not only do people get the luxury and the opportunity to watch these movies at home in the comfort of their homes, but I mean, in this situation where we're kind of forced to stay home, now more than ever, we got to stay ahead of, everything else. We have to, you know, maintain social distance. We have to stay clean, stay healthy, stay away from people, in order to be able to have things, stay the way that they are, rather than have things go a different direction. I mean, we have to abide by the rules and the laws that are stated for us, but I mean, at the same time, at what point can we still continue to enjoy the liberties and the freedoms that we have when we're not locked up, when we're not staying at home, when we're not, forced to hunger down? I mean, granted, like I said, things have been a little bit lax. Things have been, people have been pulling back the reins on a few guidelines and rules, but I mean, I still feel like there will be some repercussions for this, early pull from, the stay-at-home order. I mean, I feel like there's more to be believed that, that maybe a second wave will happen. Maybe something, an increase in number of outbreak will happen, and, it's just going to result in people being sick, and we're just going to end up being back at square one. But thinking about the idea and thinking about talking about it in this episode had me thinking a lot about the whole Universal AMC Theater debacle. And if you don't know, AMC Theaters recently discussed their disapproval and disagreement with videos being released on demand in light of Trolls World Tour coming out in video on demand just a month ago, or a little less than a month ago. Commercially, huge success. 100 million made within the first week of the movie's release, but the theater company is not budging because they're really upset that, it's stealing away from the cinematic experience. Totally understandable. Movies are meant to be enjoyed in the theaters. The reason why these actors and the actresses make these movies are to be enjoyed and be brought to the theater, because that's what they do for a living. I mean, they make these movies so we can enjoy them and watch them, and anticipate what's going to happen next. Follow that great storyline, that kick-ass soundtrack. The film score adds so much to a film's plot and to the story. I mean, there's so many other factors that play into the cinematic experience of a film. And, I agree. I totally agree with AMC. But I also think that the smart thing to do is to make the video releases on demand readily available to the public. As, this coronavirus thing keeps going on. Who knows how long we're going to be facing these problems and these concerns as a country, as a nation. I mean, I think the smart thing at this point would be to have all these movies be made readily available to make on demand. Now, you have big summer blockbusters that were supposed to be, surefire hits, blockbuster hits this year, and I can understand it's going to be a big pain, a big blow to those features that were supposed to be released. You had Wonder Woman 1984, so that was supposed to release in June. Now it got pushed back to August. Dates are tentative. Christopher Nolan's Tenet is not pushed back, but it's still slated to release on its announced theatrical date. But the theaters are still closed till at least the 1st of June, July, midsummer. How difficult and how hard is it going to be for these movies and these films to secure a release date, more or less continue to be able to focus their sights and their projected box office earnings when theaters are closed? What happens then? What happens to these blockbuster films that are being pushed by directors and producers and the studios to have their dates pushed back because of the coronavirus. And with that being said, I mean, if you continue to push the date back, you're just going to continue to push the date back even further. You're going to have these films squaring off against other blockbuster films for next year, when this coronavirus is supposed to, have its end of its run, or whatever we call it. I mean, we're bound to know that, certain things can't be, we can't happen. We can't help to notice that the inevitable is going to happen. We can't hold off on films that are released, even though Hollywood and the studios would probably disagree and say, we're fucking Hollywood. We're a legit movie studio. We're Marvel Studios. We're Universal. We're Lionsgate. We're TriStar. We're Columbia. We can literally do anything the fuck we want to do. If we want to push back a movie and hold it back for another 3 years, we're gonna fucking do it. But I mean, I think it's just ridiculous. I mean, it gets me talking and gets me thinking about how legit video on demand would be if it was regulated to be more accessible to the general public. I mean, even if theaters were to release movies that are released on demand, would be very difficult to make a profit, rather than outside of video and releases, because you still have merchandise for that film, merchandising, marketing ploys and schemes that you can have released simultaneously with the movie's film release. A lot of things can factor into this, and it can benefit to the overall, cost of the production, what you make back, and what the film costs to make, and what you're planning on making back in revenue. Totally biased, but I mean, at the same time, it's like the studios are not really losing out on much. I highly doubt that Disney and Marvel are gonna shy away from trying to make more money off of Black Widow, even though it got pushed back. This movie was supposed to be released this past month. We were supposed to already have seen Black Widow in theaters, but COVID-19 has caused this delay in this film and pushed back to December. I mean, not December, I'm sorry. Well, August. I believe August also. But, man, can you believe that, though? I mean, a film like Wonder Woman 1984, which is promoted and done correctly through DC standards of how successful Wonder Woman was in theaters, against Marvel's Black Widow, it's a no-brainer. I mean, Marvel and Disney are going to walk out of that fight, still making a sizable profit from, revenue, ticket sales, if the film is to be released in theaters. Now, it's not to say that it might not happen. It could happen. Regulations at theaters could be made as, we're going to have a 25% seating capacity at all theaters, which means these tickets will not sell as heavily as they would had there not been COVID-19. Every week a movie is released, whether it's a tentpole blockbuster film like a Marvel release, a Disney release, a Star Wars film, any other Marvel film, a DC film, some other films that have hype behind them. You have those films that are released the same week, Thursday midnight showings. Those tickets are sold out, completely sold out, and you have nothing now because of COVID-19. 25% seating capacity, that's not even the whole auditorium. You can literally sit not even a little under half of the auditorium for a movie per showing. How tedious is that? Would you rather risk going to the theater, sitting in an auditorium in a theater at 25% capacity, wearing your masks, having to wear your masks while you watch a movie, knowing that concession sales like popcorn and Coke and candies are all going to be well well craved and well wanted because, it goes hand in hand with the theater experience. But I mean, you still gotta wear your mask in a theater with at least a handful of strangers that you don't know, or, around people that you don't know, still wearing a mask, still breathing the same air, and still, sitting in the same auditorium. Want to risk it? Want to really take that chance and really say, hey, I'm going to go to the theater anyway? No, I wouldn't. I mean, I'd have to say I think it'd be a bad idea overall. I mean, you're taking a chance at going to the movies and still being around people and still taking that huge risk. I mean, it's a bad ploy. It's a bad idea. I see the push and the need for the release of films on demand, and I feel like this should be more of a regulation and more of a necessity, more than greedy studios and I'm sorry, not greedy studios, greedy theaters seeking banning of films that should be doing successfully commercially in a theater, like Trolls World Tour. AMC banned all future Universal features to be played at their theaters, all of them. You know what this means? No Fast 9, no Halloween Kills or Halloween Ends, no Universal releases, none of these upcoming films from Universal, the studios, or any co-partnership with the studio is going to be allowed at AMC theaters. Now, if you're forced to, I don't know, travel further and go out of your way further to another place or another city to go watch a movie in a theater that you're not really comfortable in because it's kind of closer, it's kind of farther away from your house than it is closer. I mean, you're really going out of your way to really watch this movie, unless you really, truly need to see this film. I mean, I still see that the need and the want and the desire for video on demand to be regulated, to be more encouraged rather than frowned upon. I mean, a theater chain like AMC will struggle, yeah. But I mean, even if you were to even if the theaters were to open right now, right at this day, there would be no new films to show. Because think about it, if theaters are closed now, such as Cinemark and AMC and Regal Cinemas, these theaters that are closed now, even if they were to open right now, they wouldn't have no new films to show. So all these theaters have been closed. No one has been there to receive the copies of the films that the new releases in the actual theater. I mean, so you're basically fucked. I mean, if you open up the theater, you're constricted to 25% seating capacity, as aforementioned. Sitting in a crowded theater, not so much crowded, but I mean still around people, wearing masks while you're indoors, while you're near people, and you still have to, you're gonna pay for a ticket that's like still $9-10, and what are they gonna show? Older films that you've already seen, films that you already have on DVD, Blu-ray, that you've already watched on demand on Netflix. I mean, for all we know, these theaters can open up and have a petition to start having showings of movies using Netflix and using Hulu, connecting their servers, these streaming services to their projectors and charging people to watch movies on Netflix. Would you really take a risk and paying for that to watch movies that you've already seen at home and on DVD years ago, and pay the average ticket price to watch a movie that you've already seen a handful of times? It's not a good play. It's not a good idea. I don't think it's really a suggestion that I would follow. It's not something that I truly believe in, because I feel like theaters should, be one of those factors that should remain closed and really capitalize on the video on demand market. I mean, No one's going to want to go out or feel comfortable or feel safe going to the theaters. No parent is going to allow their kids to go out to the movies, to go hang out with their friends while this whole COVID-19 is going on. It's really something to think about, and these theaters and these studios have to really, consider before they think about opening up again, and or even thinking about having the opportunity to reopen to a demographic that's not going to do very, very, very well at the theater. Just an aforementioned thought. I have ranted, I have gone on and discussed my disapproval and my distaste for this whole realm of possibilities when it comes to the theater, when it comes to this video on demand, services. I truly believe that there is a median ground that can be reached, a certain limit that can be reached. It can bring a lot of people joy, a lot of people happiness, but at the same time, be real. Face the reality that we're living in now, the new normal, if you will, and kind of just take everything with a grain of salt and just take things in stride and baby steps, because we don't know how much longer this is going to last. And I encourage you guys to stay home, stay safe. If you don't feel comfortable with going out, stay home. And if you feel you'd benefit more from staying at home, by all means, stay at home. Ain't nobody forcing you to leave your home. Well, guys, that'll do for me. This has been another episode of the Real Radar Radio Show. I am out of here. I'm looking forward to the next episode because I have a lot to discuss. Obviously, I rambled on about this, and I feel like I could talk more about it, so maybe I'll touch up more about it on the next episode. But until then, guys, take it easy, stay safe, and until next time. This is the Real Radar Radio Show.